Welcome to Daily Armor. Today we're going to be in the book of Isaiah, chapter 58, looking at this next little part of verse number 11. So let's look at verse number 11, and it says, "And the Lord shall guide thee continually, and satisfy thy soul in drought, and make fat thy bones, and thou shalt be like a watered garden, and like a spring of water whose waters fail not." In our previous devotion, I never even made it past, "And the Lord shall guide thee continually." That brings me so much comfort. Now, in the previous verse, verse number 10, it says, "If thou draw out thy soul to the hungry." If there's some things that I have to line up with Him, you have to line up with Him. There's some things that He's doing in us inwardly, and there's some things that He wants us to do or to not to outwardly. So there's some, put into action some things. And then when we do that and we take that step of faith and we step forward and just do what He tells us to, then we're gonna experience that guidance, and He's gonna be right there the whole time. As we look at this next part of verse number 11, "And satisfy thy soul in drought," there's going to be some things that God's going to ask you to do, and it's not going to make you happy. It's not going to make somebody else happy. It's not going to be about, He may lead you to do some things that is going to cause some issues. It could cause you some physical issues. It could cause you some emotional issues. It could cause, maybe some interruption of relationships, friendships, things like that. But He is our source. He's saying, "I'm going to be right there with you. I'm going to guide you continually." That's always going to be there. That's constantly going to be there. "And satisfy thy soul." So that word satisfy means to be satiated. It's actually a new word for me. I really didn't know what it was like to be satiated. And it's talking about with food. When you look up the definition, being is like that, being satiated by food, to truly be satisfied, where your body is not asking for more. Sometimes the way that I used to eat, it seemed like I would never get full. I just would stop. I'm like, well, I'm going to just stop before I make myself sick. I'm going to just stop because my jaws are bothering me and I'm tired of chewing. I'm going to just stop because, this is not, going to be good for me later. So I wouldn't stop eating. I wouldn't continue to eat until I was really satisfied, because it seemed like the things that I was eating never left me satisfied. And that's kind of the way the world, it always is going to leave us coming short. You're always going to be wanting more. You're never going to get that full satiated experience. And as the Lord had instructed me back in March to eat a different way and to go and looking at food a different way, and really completely changed about the way that I eat food, I experienced some, getting into the way that I eat now, getting into it, I remember that first time when I was like, I'm really, like, my body was satisfied. My body was happy. My body was satiated. And to the point where I wasn't hungry an hour later like I normally would be. I wasn't starving to death and piddling around in the kitchen 2 hours later or 3 hours later. That I actually I could go 12, 18, 20, 24 hours sometimes and really be satisfied for hours and hours and hours at a time. And that experience, when I felt really satiated, it was so liberating that I was like, oh, well, what did the trick? And it was, I had to incorporate some things that I normally didn't eat, a way of eating that was completely different. I mean, really, if you don't change something, how is things going to change if you don't change, So I completely changed, because this is what the Lord led me to do, the way that I ate. And then when I was figuring out what was, what I was supposed to be doing, and then experience that satiated feeling, really satisfied. It didn't matter if it was something that others wanted me to do or eat or whatever. It didn't matter about, it wasn't somebody's formula. It was figuring out what God wanted me to do. And then as I did that, I experienced a satisfaction that was so liberating that it's hard to describe. And when it's talking about to satisfy, to be that feel, to enrich he so enriched my body to where it didn't miss all that other stuff the way that I used to eat. It didn't miss all that. It was really happy, and it was running better, and it was feeling better, and I was no longer, thinking about, well, what am I going to eat in a couple more hours, or what am I going to eat in 3 hours? I'm like, be looking at the watch and thinking, it's just been 3 hours. Why am I starving? I would feel like I had not ate all day when I had just maybe ate 3 hours before. And it was very aggravating. It was very frustrating. But once that I changed and did what God guided me to do, then my soul, my body was satisfied, my soul became satisfied, and I was doing what God told me to do. And that people are like, you're sticking with this. And I'm like, it's because I'm doing what God asked me to do. And God's plan is always the right plan, and it's going to fill you, it's going to fill me, it's going to enrich your life, it's going to enrich my life, it's going to satiate my life. It's going to satiate your life to where you're so satisfied. It doesn't matter what the naysayers say. It doesn't matter what others think about the way that you're doing. It doesn't matter, because you know that you are satisfied and you're happy and you're liberated and you're content, and he can do that. I like that. Satisfy thy soul. That's personal. And what works for me may not work for you, because God's got a different instruction for me than he's got for you. So I don't really promote the way that I eat, because it's not about that. It's about finding what God wanted me to do, and finding what God wants you to do, and sticking to it no matter what he says to do. And I'm telling you, this is something I did not want to do. Did not think I could do this. But when I am most satisfied is when I am doing it just like he wants me to do it. And my soul, that's that inner being, that's our inner appetites, our inner desires, our inner what's going on in my mind, what's the activity of what I want to do. Like I am so happy. And it's not meaning that all the circumstances are happy, because sometimes sometimes the circumstances are a little crazy, or there's grief involved, or there's different situations that are difficult and hard, and a lot of work, and maybe even some pain involved. And there's been some pain involved. And now pain gets involved if I steer away from what God wants me to do. Then I experience a little discomfort, and I'm like, oh, I must have not, there must have been something in that. I'll have to be careful, or I'll know that, well, I shouldn't have ate that. And I just want to get back to that satisfied state, because that's where I'm most liberated. Even like when we went on our cruise, I kind of just did whatever I wanted to. I was kind of like just going with the flow, and just, and I was so unsatisfied that I could not wait to start eating. I mean, I was just like, okay, I feel so much better before. I like that feeling of being satisfied. I don't like that nagging hunger. I don't like that, never can seem to find the right thing, never can seem to, feel satisfied. And once the Lord does that for you, you're not going to be satisfied with anything else. If God's got a plan for you, and you follow through on that plan, and then you realize, hey, this is my purpose. This is my purpose for being here. God has given me a purpose. And that is where you find satisfaction for the soul, and it's not something that I can give myself. I didn't know what I needed. I didn't know, but God, when he was showing me, and I was like, Lord, are you sure? I'm just not sure that I can do this. I'm not sure. But when I knew for sure that his plan, this is what he wanted me to do, and this doesn't just apply to my diet, this applies to every part of our life. Finances, relationships, attitude issues, physical, learning new things. Just every part of your life. And even if you feel like, well, Lord, I didn't do a very good job at that, or Lord, I didn't, I did something this morning and I knew that I messed up a little bit. But in the midst of it, he was right there with me, and I didn't get that sick feeling. I did not feel disappointed. I was like, well, Lord, that's how you wanted it to come out. And so that's how it came out. And I felt like he was right there with me, and that he was guiding me continually. And in the midst of like a hang up, that he came through, and I was content with how it turned out, because it turned out how God wanted it to, not how I wanted it to, but how God wanted it to. And that is where I got like this, it's liberating. It is so freeing. It is so satisfying. And he does that not always on the outward, but inward, where, nobody can satisfy you like the Lord can. And he's saying, if you will stay lined up with me instead of, putting on a show or trying to keep everybody else happy, if you will think about what I want, what he wants, and get lined up to where I'm leading you, and I'm leading you continually, and you're right there, and you're not wandering off doing your own thing, but you're staying right close to the shepherd. I'm the little sheep, and I'm trying to stay really close to the shepherd. Then he is going to bring me to that place of liberation, that place of purpose, that place of my inner satisfaction, that I can't do that for me. That is something that he will, it's a gift from him, it's a gift from God. And even in the middle of drought. Well, what's a drought? A drought is a dry, barren land. A drought is a desert experience, and we all go through some desert experiences where you're maybe you're in the middle of waiting, maybe you're in the middle of grieving, maybe you're in the middle of waiting for that next step. You're waiting for the Lord, and he says he's worth the wait. Those that wait on the Lord, he talks about that in his word. Those that wait on the Lord, he will renew your strength. He's going to give you that satisfaction to wait, even when you're like, Lord, I can't wait anymore. I got to do something, even if it's wrong. And when you choose to not do anything, even, it's because, yes, that would be wrong. And I've done that way too many times. And I'm like, Lord, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to wait and wait and wait and wait some more, to the point where I'm like, I'm waiting. And then I'm like, okay, Lord, are you sure? And Lord, are you sure? And then have to step out and know that even in a desert place, even in a dry and barren situation that I might be in, this moment of waiting, boy, he can make you so content that it's undescribable. To be content at where I'm at, to be content at the age that I'm at, to be content at where I live and my circumstances, and nothing is perfect. Nothing in my life is perfect. There's obstacles every which way I turn, but yeah, I know that he's the one. He is my source, and he is my supply. And he is my satisfaction. He even says, and satisfy thy soul, that he will guide thee, guide me, guide you continually, and satisfy our soul, our inner person, our inner being, even in a drought. So it's not about what the circumstances don't dictate. Where I'm at in life doesn't dictate that. because he can give me that in spite of that. I love thinking about the facts versus what God said. And the facts are that life is hard and life is difficult. And yes, there's tribulation. And yes, there's trials. And yes, there's grieving. And yes, there's pain. And yes, there's discomfort. And yes, there's loneliness. But then God steps in and he satisfies you with his presence and with his power and with his provisions and with his plan. And that is just simply amazing. And I'm not getting over it. It's just it's just amazing. And that feeling of being liberated and being free, not for anything of what I've done, but of just listening for the shepherd, listening to the shepherd, and staying close to him. As I move on into a little bit more in verse number 11, it says, and make fat thy bones. You think about the fat. The fat is where it's at. I'm telling you, for me, I was very low on the fat intake. I was very low. I wanted lean meats. I wanted, I didn't want grease. I didn't like fat. And then the Lord shows me this different way of eating where really I had to adapt to fat, and only to find out that that's what my body's been craving and been wanting. And God knows. I'm looking forward to sometime down the road having another DEXA scan, and I'm praying and expecting that my bones will be thicker and denser, and that I will, move from osteopenia to normal bone density, and because I'm doing things God's way. And to make fat thy bones, that's where our bones is where our source of strength. So if your bones, as you get older, and if you're not feeding the body what it needs, it's not soaking up the nutrients, it's not soaking in the calcium and things that it needs into the bones, your bones are going to become brittle. And I don't have osteoporosis, but I have osteopenia, or at least I have. I'm not sure if I've still got it, but where the bones were starting to suffer. But when I read this, I was thinking about, Lord, my bones, I bet my bones are getting thicker and stronger. And when it talks about that fat, it says, and make fat thy bones, that's giving you strength. The Lord knows how to give us strength. I have been in periods of my life, years of periods of my life, where I was very weak. Physically weak, and as I was younger, I just always felt like I was strong as an ox. And then something happened with my health, and before I had surgery, I had gotten down very, very, very weak. And even after I had surgery, it took a couple of years to really regain that strength. And as the Lord has got me changing everything this year, which today is the last day of 2023 that I'm shooting this video, I look back and think I am stronger than I have been in years. And he's got new things for me coming in 2024 that I'm going to do and incorporate. And I'm just thinking this verse has come to life and is going to continue to serve me in 2024 as long as I stay lined up with him, as long as I am doing the ifs that he's told me to do, and keeping my attitude about him and keeping my actions pointed in where he wants them to go. But that he will make fat thy bones, and he's going to make me stronger. Now, I'm not expecting to be 20 years old anymore. That's okay. But as strong as this body is able, and then tapping into his strength, giving me his strength, which is unimaginable, is without limit. His strength is without limit, and he's saying that he knows how to do that, and he can do that for us when he desires to do that for me. He desires to do that for you as long as we stay lined up with him. I'm not going to get into the rest of verse number 11, but when we come back, we'll be talking about that like that watered garden and about that that spring that fails not. So until next time, thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you again soon.